Hey everyone, this is Adam Elenbaas from Nightlight Astrology. Happy Monday, everybody. Today we start the week by looking at Venus cazimi. That means Venus conjoined the Sun, or Venus at the heart of the Sun. And we are going to take a look at 5 different things to watch for, 5 different themes that you may notice as the week progresses and Venus and the Sun are traveling together. You may have already noticed some of these themes over the weekend as the conjunction was starting to come through. So we'll take a look at the timeline and 5 different themes that we may notice this week. And I hope that this will be useful for people, because this is a really exciting transit that signals the shift for Venus into the beginning of Venus's shift into the evening star position, which will play out over the course of the summer into July, before Venus kind of comes out and appears as the evening star. So it's a long reset process for Venus, but we're right at the heart of that reset process today. So it's an exciting moment to look at in depth. All right, well, before we get into it, as always, don't forget to like and subscribe. Share your comments and reflections if you have them. We love hearing from you guys. You can find transcripts of any of my daily talks on the website, which is nightlightastrology.com. When you are over there, the promotions I want to cover today are 2. First, go to the events page, click on live talks. You will see that here we go. Yes, so you will see that the 12th house is my next talk on June 13th. I'm giving a talk called The 12th House, The World We Struggle to See, and this is about the healing potential of that 12th whole sign house in your chart and the way that it relates to the first whole sign house on an archetypal level. So there's kind of a way in which we can approach this, and regardless of what your birth chart looks like, there's going to be information in this talk that can help you relate to your 12th house in a deeper and more meaningful way, maybe unlocking some of the healing potential that exists there, because it does exist for all of us in that house. So that'll be a fun talk on June 13th. If you can't make it live, you can purchase the talk and get the replay link so that you can watch it on your own time. And then the other thing I want to promote are the upcoming courses. Ancient Astrology for the Modern Mystic, our first year course in Ancient Hellenistic Astrology, begins June 16th. You can learn more about it here on the first year course page. New group starting up as Jupiter and Pluto are trying. It's a great time right now to study a philosophical system, especially a big starry sort of Aquarian subject like Ancient Astrology. At the bottom, you'll find some payment options, including the need-based tuition option, which is available for all of our programs, and that allows you to pick within a sliding scale if you are someone who needs a little help because you are living in a fixed or tight budget. We understand people are coming from different places. We want to make sure no one's priced out of studying a sacred subject. The Horary astrology course also begins on June 22nd. If you have a little bit of a background in traditional astrology, you know your dignities, you know how to identify aspects, you understand traditional house meanings. Horary is a really interesting subject in astrology that a lot of you guys, I think, will enjoy. If you stick around after today's talk, you'll hear a little promotional video that I've tagged on to the end of the content for the day, going over the Horary program in depth so you can learn more about it. And there's need-based tuition assistance for that program as well. So feel free to take advantage of that if it is something that helps make the program possible. We ask people to just be honest. If they can afford what we ask for our normal price, use that. If you need help and you really want to study, then feel free to use the sliding scale need-based tuition. All right, so on that note, let us switch gears now. I'm going to put up the real-time clock, and we're going to go over the transit timeline here first. So you can see here, Monday, June 3rd, we're in the first week of June. It is a busy first week of June with a new moon coming up in Gemini. We'll be covering that. But you can see at the outset of the week that we have Venus and the Sun conjoined. So the 2 planets are within that about 15-minute range that we like to see. It's right about there. And now what I want to do is just push this forward a little bit. If I go forward to tomorrow, June 4th, you'll see that they are exactly conjoined down to the minute. And if I go forward again to Wednesday, they're still conjoined within less than half of a degree. And then on Thursday, June 6th, as the new moon comes through, I mean, look at this. If we just back this up a little bit to get the exact degree of the new moon is in a triple conjunction with Venus at the heart of the Sun. That's fantastic. It's a new moon with Venus cazimi. What a powerful omen, honestly. And then we go forward one day, and now by Friday, we're getting that separation from Venus. She's now officially moving into the recovery phase where on the other side, Venus has been going through combustion, which can be a little difficult. So now we see Venus separating. And if we track it out just a little bit, we want to get Venus about 15 degrees away from the sun. Here you can see by the end of June, she's just about 6 degrees away from the sun in Cancer, and then gradually gaining distance. So by the time Venus enters Leo in mid-July, she's about 11 degrees separate from the sun. When you get to about 15, that's typically where Venus will appear. So when we see right here, this is toward the end of July, Venus is in Leo at 13 Leo, the sun's at 0 Leo. So you get about 15 degrees of separation, and that for Venus is going to occur right at the very end of July. Okay, so Venus appearing as the evening star. I'm kind of excited for it because her appearance as the evening star happens to coincide with my Venus return. So I'm like, ooh, that's kind of a fun. But either way, if you're, you're like, can't help but think about myself with Venus in Leo. But you can look and see that Venus is slowly carrying this transformational process that she's going through right now with respect to the kazimi, and she's and sort of drawing it out, I should say, all the way through the end of July. So it's something to watch for, especially since as Venus appears as the ruler of the recent Jupiter-Uranus conjunction in Venus's sign of Taurus, as she appears as the evening star, she will immediately enter into a square with Uranus in Taurus. That's by August 1st. It's a very powerful moment. So there's a lot of action for Venus now and as the summer goes on. So what we want to do today, given that Venus is about to be at the heart of the sun for the most of this week, is refresh ourselves on what a Venus kazimi looks like. And this is specific to Venus at the heart of the sun in Gemini, a Mercury-ruled sign, a double-bodied air sign, etc. So these are 5 things to watch for in no particular order that I think will be useful to think about this week. And you may have already been experiencing these things, by the way, as the weekend was coming through. For example, Venus enters the same degree as the sun yesterday. So you may have even been noticing some of this already. All right, well, the first one is that when Venus and the sun come together, you get Venus infused with the light of the sun, which can bring about clarity, light, enthusiasm, and energy, a kind of enlivening and invigorating quality in the same way that you see plants perk up and get really happy when there's sunlight. Or when they've been watered, some plants get kind of droopy, and then they get watered and they're like, Any planet, when it's at the heart of the sun, is receiving that life support from the sun. And hence Venus goes through this awakening and clarifying or lightening, or the energy could be described as a kind of enthusiasm or an energizing that is flowing right through the heart of Venus. So with respect to Venusian topics, any and all Venusian topics can go through a period where it's like they're getting the spotlight of the sun is just blasting right on Venus and infusing those topics with life. So love, sex, friendships, art, beauty, style, playfulness, all Venusian topics. The things that we value or find attractive, all of them get amplified by light, which means we can also come into understanding. Where there's light, there's suddenly an understanding of who and what I like or love or find beautiful, right? So it's as though there is this great energizing effect, and it can be, how does the enthusiasm come through with Venus? Suddenly we're more affectionate. We externally display or demonstrate, I love this, especially in a Mercury-ruled sign where communication may also be amplified. Here we find ourselves suddenly speaking or communicating more openly or affectionately or brightly about those things that we love. Or you could find that there's just a kind of a lightness and a brightness with respect to mind, speech, intelligence, communication, and our relationships, or the things we love or find attractive. Or anything artistic as well. So just think about the sun just pouring straight through the center and just radiating light through everything Venusian, and then give it a little mercurial, airy twist. Number 2 would be that because Gemini, a Mercury-ruled double-bodied air sign, is naturally playful. It's a very playful sign. Did you know, for example, that Hermes was traditionally the ruler of a number of different sports, especially things that go back and forth? Pickleball, tennis, soccer, basketball, court games that go back and forth, back and forth. Tag, you're it. No. I'm chasing you, now you're chasing me. This kind of back and forth was considered Hermes-like. So when you have Venus and now Jupiter in the sign of Gemini, you have an energy of playfulness. Did you know, for example, that Jupiter in Gemini was on a Threads conversation recently and was participating in it and adding in some stuff, and it was really interesting. The Rubik's Cube came out, I think it was. Someone mentioned when Jupiter was in Gemini. I want to say Catherine Urban mentioned that. She's a friend and colleague. There was the Atari or something like that. Mario Brothers 2 and 3, big, huge revolutions in gaming when Jupiter was in Gemini. The Xbox was created while Jupiter was in Gemini. The PlayStation 2, both of which constituted major revolutions in gaming, came out while Jupiter was in Gemini. So we have this Gemini energy right now, the point is, and it is very much associated with playfulness. There were a number of brain teasers or mind puzzles this other woman on Threads was mentioning, and I thought that was interesting too. But anyway, the point is that it's a very playful place. Venus being reborn in this place with the light of the sun energizing her can mean that there's just a playfulness, an attractiveness, a flirtation, kind of intelligent, witty, and fun quality sort of in the air right now. So watch for these qualities because they can really enliven and they can be a part of a process of change. Sometimes we think that the vehicle or the impetus for change has to come from pain or suffering. I only changed because things got rough and then I took the cosmic feedback and I refined myself. But the other way in which change happens is through fun, through play, through excitement, through creativity. Change can happen just as readily through surprising, fun, witty banter as it can through a difficult conversation, So consider the idea that right now, these qualities of Venus and the sun together in playful, flirtatious Gemini can be very transformative. They can be very helpful. Number 3. Now, because Venus is at the heart of the sun, and this is resetting her into the evening star position, where she is more comfortable, by the way, because the evening is associated with the nocturnal planets. Venus is the benefic of the nocturnal sect. So this is a moment of reset and rebirth for all things that are Venusian and mercurial at the same time. The way I like to think about it is this. Both of the benefics in ancient astrology were associated with the ideal sense of flow, harmony, and order. When we think of order now, we are often programmed to think of order as something suppressive or oppressive in relation to individual autonomy and spontaneity, right? So order is like, discipline, order, structure, control, someone trying to control me. But for the ancients, that word order is very much like the idea that a song that you love. Think of a song that you absolutely love. That song reflects a kind of Venusian order, a meaningful ordering of notes and sounds and sentiments, a message that's being communicated through beauty and harmony, and there's a kind of internal coherency to it. That's order in the ancient sense that Venus and Jupiter both represent. They're both co-present in Gemini right now. And the Venusian reset that we're experiencing while Venus is at the heart of the sun can be about receiving a new vision that creates a new or different sense of Venusian order. One of the words that was used to describe the order of the cosmos was harmonia. That basically means that the universe is coherent and beautiful and well arranged. Even, you have to have an imagination for this because it's a little bit hard, but even in the sense that it includes darkness, it includes difficult things, but it includes them in a way that, not at every second, and certainly not in the midst of trauma or pain or suffering, but almost always there is a sense of everything having its place that has been reflected on and commented on by mystics and sages throughout all ages, all across the world, that, right in the midst of pain and suffering, it doesn't always make sense, but there is a place for darkness even. And so Venus is not a stranger to including darkness in her sense of what is meaningful, beautiful, or a part of the overall harmony too. So, I mean, you have to remember that. It's not just like, the universe is such a beautiful, shiny place. No, it's beautiful in the way that it's arranged. That also includes darkness. So anyway, with respect to both Venus and Jupiter, their reset moments, we just gone through the Sun-Jupiter cazimi, their reset moments can also point to a revisioning of different kinds of order. Jupiter's order is usually about philosophical, intellectual values, the justice system, the education system, forms of government. Ideally, Jupiter represents something like a system or body of knowledge or information, like astrology or engineering or physics or something like that. Venus has more to do with the sense of order that's aesthetic and that relates to our sensual experience of life. For example, something that's much more Venusian would be music theory, or it would be the color palette and the mingling and matching of different colors in aesthetic displays. The word cosmos shares the same roots of the word cosmetic, a well-arranged whole. So when either Venus or Jupiter are going through resets, and again, they both just have, there is a sense in which we are trying to establish a new sense of order. Now, for each of us, it can be very subtle and obviously very personal. You want to look at the whole sign house of Gemini to see where that reset is happening, what topics of life are connected to that reset. But Venus at the heart of the sun is a chance for a new vision of what is both sensible, ordered, and beautiful or enjoyable to start emerging. The Venusian order of our lives is just as important as any other kind of order. But Venus right now is saying, what is going to be pleasurable? What's going to be beautiful? What's going to be enjoyable? And how does the picture of our lives need to shift to accommodate a different set of values that we want to possess and create as a matter of lived, embodied joy or sensual gratification? It's like creating a new Venusian way of life. And it doesn't happen all at once. It doesn't happen in one moment. It's been happening. The Jupiter-Uranus conjunction in Venus's sign was part of it. And now the Venusian reset with Venus gradually rising as the evening star by late on in the summer. It's all part of the same thing. So a moment of reset or rebirth for all things Venusian. And there's a little mercurial twist, which means that this reset may have something to do with things that are also mercurial. Words, speech, communication, thoughts, learning, anything that is both playful and curious and beautiful. It can have to do with the development of skills that are Venusian, like singing or songwriting or learning a musical instrument. It can also literally be about games and the importance of games and play. Affection, pleasure, words, speech, the value of intelligence when it comes to what we find attractive. These are all different kinds of qualities that may impress themselves on some kind of shift or reordering of our lives that Venus is asking us to consider right now. Number 4 is, I already just mentioned this, I guess I jumped ahead of myself, a reordering of the cosmos according to Venus. So when Venus goes through this reset, she's asking us to rearrange the cosmetic display of our life. And this is something happening both now. It's been happening since April with Jupiter-Uranus. It'll continue happening as Venus emerges as the evening star through the end of July. Shifts in relationships. Of course, this is the big one. Venus is Venus after all, and so we may experience shifts in relationships, the chance for relationships to become more diverse or to open or change in multiple different new exciting directions. That multiplicity, that curiosity of Gemini, that ability to open our minds and to consider multiple different ideas and streams of information. Venus is asking us to open our minds and our worlds and our lives, our relationships, our values, what we find beautiful or attractive. And it's seeking to come in and just like diversify. And to be more, I think to be more playful is an overarching concern for this placement in general. So the opening of our minds and our relationships are both signified by Venus and Jupiter being in Gemini under an upcoming new moon in Gemini as well. So we're going to visit this more as the week goes on because we've got a new moon in Gemini and a bunch of other stuff happening all month in Gemini. If you watched horoscopes or listened to the monthly overview, you heard us breaking some of this down. So this is all really exciting stuff. And this is what I have for today to get us started for the week. Let me know if you have good stories to share or anything that comes up as the week goes on. Come back and share your story. We'd love to hear it. We're going to wait for a break in the action because there's been so many transits this spring. I like to wait until there's a lull to throw in a new Grabbed episode, but we do have some great stories I've been aggregating to share with you guys eventually. If you stick around after I sign off, you can learn more about the upcoming Horary program. All of our classes start this month with all of this Gemini energy, all the trines to Pluto and Aquarius. It is a great week for the commencement of, it's a great month, I should say, for the commencement of astrological study, or really any kind of study. But anyhow, I'll leave it there. Thank you guys for listening, and I hope to see you guys in classes soon, and we'll see you again tomorrow with more content. Bye. Hey everyone, thanks for sticking around. I'm going to tell you guys more about the upcoming Horary Astrology program, which begins later in June. And I hope that if you have never learned anything about Horary, that you will, at least in listening to this, be exposed to Horary Astrology, have a little bit of an understanding of what it is. And if not now, then maybe sometime in the future you can take time to study it. It is one of the forms of astrology that dates back to the earliest eras of astrology, the Hellenistic era, the medieval era, the early Indian period of astrology. And it is a branch of astrology that is concerned with specific predictive questions. So, for example, a horary question is usually formed in terms of a yes or no answer, and it is cast from the location of the astrologer at the time that the astrologer receives the question. So a typical horary question might be, will I get the job? Or will we get married? Or my cat went missing, will she come back? There are applications of horary astrology that involve the location of missing items, like where is my missing pen? Or where is, I actually helped a farmer one time locate a missing bull that had gotten out of the pasture. So it's a very, really fascinating form of astrology. It's very old, and it is like the birth chart of a question, a predictive question. So again, if I receive a question from someone and it's like, will I get the job? Then I cast that chart at the time I get the question. I usually use the receipt of the email time. And then I cast a chart for that question. And there are a series of traditional techniques that have been around for a very long time, thousands of years, that are used to determine the answer to that question. So with that in mind, let me show you a chart and you can learn, see what it's like in real time. So this chart is, the question that was asked is, will my spouse keep his job? This is a woman who had some very good reason to worry that her spouse might be getting laid off. And so she wanted to know so she could prepare herself, is he in fact going to be laid off from his job? And so when I receive that question, that's a horary question, when I receive it, at 9:03 a.m. on April 10th of 2023, a little over a year ago, here in Minnetonka, Minnesota, where I live, I cast a chart that becomes the birth chart of that question. I then use a series of techniques, and that's what you're going to learn in the Horary program, are those techniques that go into answering all different kinds of questions. Questions about jobs, questions about money, questions about health, questions about marriage or relationships, questions about babies, questions about in pregnancy. I mean, you name it. And even missing pets and people and missing items. You see a lot of different approaches in Horary. And so over the course of a year, we study those approaches to different kinds of questions, and we practice with different charts of different questions, learning the techniques so that we can have this predictive tool in our kit as an astrologer. So anyway, here's a question, will spouse keep his job? In Horary, what happens is you are always looking at the planets that represent the people and aspects of the question. The person asking the question is called the querent. The querent is always given the ruler of the ascendant and usually the moon as a co-signifier of the querent. So in this case, Gemini is rising. So we're going to give Mercury to the querent and the moon. Well, we can see the moon is sitting right on the cusp of the 7th house of marriage, which shows us that the querent, the person asking the question, is indeed really concerned about their spouse. The placement of the moon gives that away because it's sitting on the cusp of the 7th, which is going to be the house of the partner. So you see little things like that. They're a little wink that you have you have a radical chart, so to speak. Now, the 7th house ruler is going to be the spouse. That's Jupiter, since Sagittarius sits on the 7th house cusp. In Horary, we use quadrant-based houses because the theory was all developed through quadrant-based house systems, which is interesting. So this is the only place in my practice that I teach from and use a quadrant-based house system, not whole sign. Anyway, it's really fascinating to look at this chart because Jupiter is going to represent the spouse. So we can see Jupiter over here, about to be conjoined by the sun. Then we look at the spouse's job. And the spouse's job is going to be the 10th house from the spouse. The 10th house from the 7th is going to be the ruler of the 4th. That's called derived houses. This is something that appears in Horary quite a bit. So if we take the spouse as house 1 and we count 1 through 10 from house 7, we get to the cusp of house 4 for the 10th from the 7th, or the spouse's job. That is the sun. So here we see that the sun, exalted sun in Aries, is about to conjoin Jupiter. This means that Jupiter is combust. And when Jupiter is combust like that so badly and the sun is about to conjoin it, that is a moment of death for Jupiter. So the job, we know that combustion from a planet like that is often implied in the charts of death, or that's a condition of debility for Jupiter at the hands of the exalted sun. And Jupiter is, of course, sitting on the 12th house cusp, which is the derived 6th from the 7th house of the spouse, a place that was associated with misfortune. So we can see that this is a very clear indication that that Jupiter is being debilitated by, burnt up by the job. And that moment that's coming of the conjunction could be positively looked at as maybe a death and rebirth of your career. But the first thing that's happening is the death. When it is a possibility built into the question that he could be one of the people that's about to be laid off at his company, and you have this kind of symbolism, this is very clearly a yes, your husband is about to be laid off because of that combustion and the upcoming combustion and conjunction from the sun. Now you might say, what about kazimi? Doesn't the kazimi mean like a rebirth? Yeah, but not first, right? The first thing that happens is that Jupiter is being burnt up by the sun. When the sun is the job and Jupiter is the spouse, and there is a possibility that this kind of event happens, then yes, that is exactly what happens. We can also see, if we take out the outer planets, which is something we toggle back and forth in our horary class, we take out the outer planets, and we can also see that the very next thing that is going to happen is the moon, as an indicator of the flow of events, is about to trine the sun and then immediately hit Jupiter, which means that the moon is also translating the light from the sun to Jupiter. And when the sun is acting here as a malefic, burning Jupiter up, this is another sign that the flow of events is going to lead that malefic sun to eliminate Jupiter. The malefic sun only in this context because Jupiter is combust. So anyway, these are little rules of horary, and there's a ton of them, right? For every different kind of question, there are different ways of assigning planets to the parts of a question, and there are different techniques that we use to answer the question. In that case, the judgment of the chart was, it does look as though your husband is going to be laid off, and indeed, that was the outcome. Her husband was laid off within a week. So the way that I framed it in the answer was very uplifting, because I said, this is when we see this kind of event, a Jupiter Sun cazimi, which we've had in the sky recently just now too, as I'm making this, that can be a sign of rebirth. So even if there's a death and a loss here of job, the opportunity for this to be a career reset is also implied by the transition of this Jupiter Sun conjunction. And she did write to me later in the summer last year to tell me that he found a new job. So, and it was indeed a positive reset. So half of the art of horary is delivering the news. How do you deliver a predictive result without increasing someone's anxiety, in a way that's constructive? How do we take what we see and translate it for someone when the question is predictive? And there's often a lot of, people have a lot of emotion invested in the outcome. So this is a beautiful form of astrology. If you are interested in studying it, here is how to register. you go over to the website, which is nightlightastrology.com, and you are going to go to the courses page. And when you're on the courses page, you're going to click on the Horary course. You need to have a background in understanding dignities, aspects, and house meanings. And then it starts on June 22nd. At the bottom, you will find that there is need-based tuition assistance. And there are also payment plans that you can utilize, and a one-time payment saves a little bit of money. So, but if you need tuition assistance because it would be impossible for you to take the program otherwise, please be sure to check that out and come study Horary. It's an amazing, amazing form of astrology. If I could do nothing but practice Horary, I would, because it is so interesting to see the unique picture of each situation come to life in the context of a Horary reading. There's no birth chart needed for it either. It's amazing that astrology can work that way. We always think, oh, it has to work off from a birth chart. No. We can use astrology just like we use tarot cards. Cast them out at the moment a unique question comes up. Cast a chart at the moment of a question, and you have a series of techniques and approaches that can help you answer it. So that's Horary in a nutshell. I hope to see you guys there, and thanks for listening.